Welcome to the Pittsburgh Gal Principal Podcast, where women school leaders and teachers come to share their school and classroom stories about teaching, learning, and leading. If you are a woman leader or teacher, I would love to have you on the show and share your story. Please connect with me on Twitter at eclaire_ahs or following my blog at pittsburghgalprincipal.wordpress.com. This is episode 4 of the Pittsburgh Gal Principal Podcast. Today I'm talking to Eleni Kyritsis. She is an IB primary years program teacher in Melbourne, Australia. In just over 4 years as a teacher, she has attained the Google Certified Trainer and the Google Certified Innovator. She has founded and hosts Teach Tech Play, an online web show that showcases EdTech tools, and she's the creator of the Genius Hour Fair, a global showcasing of Genius Hour projects from students from age 9 to 16. She was recently named the Digital Learning and Teaching Victoria Educator of the Year. So without further ado, let's begin the chat with this leading lady. I'm really excited today to be talking to Eleni Kyritsis. She is a teacher in a grammar school in Melbourne, Australia, and I haven't talked to anybody from Australia yet, so that's really exciting just for that part. But Eleni, why don't we start with you just sharing a little bit about your background, kind of tell us about how you got started in education and how you ended up in the position that you're in right now.
Okay, so I started teaching about 5 years ago, so I've been a teacher now, well, not even 5, 4.5 to be exact. And the reason I got into education was, it's a bit of a funny story. Well, my mum is a teacher, so I'd always sort of had her around to influence me. Although she never actually worked once I was born. She sort of still was involved in helping out in the school, but didn't actually go back to teaching after I was born. But I struggled through school a lot. So in grade 1, I lost 75% of my hearing, so I always struggled, and I went through a lot of doctors, and my teachers were the ones who actually helped me catch up on a lot of school and helped me gain my confidence back. And all through my schooling, I'd always sort of needed the extra support, and I had always felt that some teachers got me and others didn't, and I sort of wanted to make a difference. And when I was finishing year 12, I had to make the big decision where I was going to go and what I was going to do at university. And so I always loved animals, but then Mum put it down to me and said, could you really operate on little puppies? And I thought probably not. So I decided to go down teaching, and I don't think I could do any other career now. So I did my 4 years at Australian Catholic University, and then I got a job at a Catholic school for 3 years. So I started in grade 4, which is 9, 10-year-olds, and I worked in grade 4 for 2 years, and in my first year I found my feet, and second year I started to explore the use of technology in the classroom and attended a conference that really inspired me, and then I sort of started connecting through teach meets with other educators and sharing what I was doing and asking questions. Sort of didn't get the answers within my own school, so I sort of went elsewhere to find them, and got on Twitter, which I didn't want to do, but I didn't really care about people's food and what they were doing. And then my mind changed very quickly, thinking, hey, it's actually a lot more to Twitter, and if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't be where I am today. And then, it just started with technology, and then I attended the EdTech team's GAFE Summit and got really inspired, and then attended the Google Teacher Academy back then. And then my school was one of the first schools in Victoria to implement one-to-one Chromebooks. And in that year, I made the move in my third year to teach year 6. And that was fantastic, a huge jump. In that year, obviously, I became certified and became a trainer. And I started up Teach Tech Play, which is an online web show where we showcase technology tools from teachers around the world. And then from there, I applied and got a job at an independent school. And now I work with all girls in grade 6, and it's my second year there, and it's an IB PYP school. So we follow the, I can never say the word, the International Baccalaureate. And yeah, I teach in the primary years program. So just sort of expose my eyes to another form of inquiry and way of learning, which I'm really passionate about. Yeah, there's a lot I do to just sort of sum it up, really. And that's where I am now, just continuing to do things. I've got been HAPARA certified, and I've just received Microsoft. I've just done the Microsoft Innovative Educator course online as well. So I'm constantly looking at new and exciting things and change the way I'm thinking and things I'm doing in my class, really. So
wow, I mean, you said a lot there. So and that's great. I'm going to go back to kind of how you first got started, because we have some similarities. I also was interested in kind of the field of, well, for me, it was the field of veterinary science and medicine, and I thought that's what I was going to do until I volunteered at an animal shelter, and I thought, oh no, I cannot do this. It was not for me, and so I also decided, obviously to pursue teaching. And
it's funny that I had a similar experience. I did a work experience at my local vet, and I loved horses, and it wasn't until he said, can you hold the clamps while I cut the parts? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I was like, I don't think I can deal with this.
That's funny. Well, thank goodness that you had that experience, and you didn't go all the way through university coursework to find it out.
Yeah, definitely. It would have been a lot of years wasted, I think.
And money, too.
Yes, definitely money as well.
Now, I don't know a lot about the educational system in Australia. Can you give me like a brief sort of summary of how it works? Maybe it's very similar to the United States, but maybe not.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about your system either, so I'll explain what ours is. So we sort of start prep or foundation, it's called in some parts. It's sort of, we've just gone through a new curriculum, and some states are deciding to stick with prep, and some are deciding to change it to the new term foundation, which is sort of the beginning year of school, and students come to school at 5 years old.
Okay.
And they do prep then year 1 to 6, so that's our primary years. So it's sort of the junior year, so from 5 to 12 years old. And then after that, they move on to high school, which is about 12 years to 18 years old. So we generally have the two sort of tier. We don't have a middle school. Some schools do still have the middle school, but they're pretty much a high school or junior school. And they generally have they just call it the middle years or within the school, or the junior years. Some schools call it, depending on each individual school, but it's generally just broken up into the primary and the high school, no middle years.
Okay, and how does the high school work? Is everyone just kind of go to a high school that does its own thing, or are there, high schools in particular areas where students can choose to go depending on the emphasis?
Yeah, so we've got our government high schools, which are sort of in your local area, and a lot of them are zoned, so you have to live within a certain area to go to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live within that area, the school has to take you. Where then there's also Catholic high schools, where obviously you need to be Catholic or have attended a Catholic primary school to get into those schools. And they generally come at a smaller fee depending on the type of Catholic school you are at.
Okay.
And then you've got the independent schools where you can get a scholarship, or your parents can pay, which is like your private schools. So we've got the three sort of areas. We don't have districts here. So I know in America you guys have districts. Each school sort of run on their own.
Yes.
And you sort of have your local networks that you sort of communicate with and do things with, but you don't have any links to the other schools. It's just you're employed by a particular school over here. So it's slightly different.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense. Now, you've only been teaching for 5 years, but you have a list of accomplishments that would rally some of the veteran teachers. What keeps you inspired? Like, how do you, keep going? Because, just the general demands of teaching a classroom is a lot. And you're doing so much more than just just the typical teaching?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've just been given a lot of opportunities, and being in my fourth year, heading towards second half of the fourth year now, I think for me, I've just had people who believed in me and inspired me to just have a go, and I actually don't know any different. A lot of people ask me, do I sleep? And the answer is yes, I do sleep, but I don't see a lot of what I do as work. I've always sort of had a passion for helping other people, and so my learning is what can I give back to others, and that's sort of where Teach Tech Play came from, and that idea of connecting with others and providing, professional development. I think the thing with schools are, I was talking the other day, you always hear about innovative teachers, but how many amazing innovative schools are there? There's always one or two, three people who are doing great stuff within a school, but there's also a lot of people out there who don't actually have the connections or the support to do that. So it was pretty much just sort of helping others, and along the way I've just sort of been like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'll do that, or oh, that looks good, I'll do that. And a lot of people have said to me, oh, you should go back and do your masters, and I'm like, I don't really have any I do want to do it, but I'm sort of like, oh, I don't know, I'm happy with what I'm doing as it is. Like, I do enough in that sense. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's just, I love learning, and anything that I can learn and grasp a little bit more I sort of go for, but I don't see it as anything extra. I just see it as part of who I am and what I do, really.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a weird one.
That's awesome. So now one of the things that you've done is become a Google certified trainer and a Google certified innovator. Now, the high school that I work at, we call ourselves a Google school, but we don't have anybody besides the tech department who's actually certified. So one of my goals by the end of the summer is to get that basic level 1 certification, in hopes to inspire other people in my school, my teachers, to get that certification. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, since you've been there, done that, you've gotten those certifications, what would be a benefit, to my teachers to do that? Like, why
I think it's
should
just
they?
ensuring that sense of knowing what you're doing and sharing your learning with others. So the basics can start with the educator exams, where there's level 1 and level 2, where you simply don't really have to do much. You just have to sit these 2 exams online. And for a lot of teachers who are already using Google, and especially if you already call yourself a Google school, it's actually not that hard to do. It's quite basic in the sense, if you use it every day, you know the answers. So I think for a lot of teachers, it's just a matter of fact of just doing it. And I think a lot have that fear of, I'm not actually going to know it, I don't know this, and it just builds their confidence, go, hey, it's actually not as hard as you think. And you just need one person to do it to realize that and be like, oh, I can do it. But then the trainer and the certified innovator, that it's now called, is a little bit more tricky, because trainer, obviously, you have to provide professional learning for others. So you have to have clocked up and created, it's changed in the last year, so I'm not 100% of the exact processes. But when I did it, it's similar to this. It's just slightly been adapted. But you have to provide evidence of training teachers and have a case study in that process and create a video of sharing a tool that you would introduce to somebody, for instance, sort of sharing who you are. And in that sense, it sort of takes that step that little bit more. And a lot of teachers go, oh, that's too much work, way too much work for me. I've got enough on my plate. But I sort of saw it as, hey, you know what, I'm already doing it. I'm already presenting and providing professional learning for a lot of people. It's not that hard. And at the time, I was helping a school roll out Google Apps for Education. So I went to their school and helped out at staff meetings and ran some of their staff meetings. So for me, it became, hey, I've already done this. It's all I've got to do is put together a short little video just to showcase something. So I did that, sent it off, and I was lucky enough to receive the trainer. And then as the Google Teacher Academy, so I did it the opposite. I did the Teacher Academy, then the trainer, but now you have to do the trainer before you can get well, they don't say you have to, but it's recommended that you do now.
Okay.
And then that one's even harder, because only 50 educators get accepted worldwide. So
Wow.
You're in a bigger pool, and there's that. I applied once and I didn't get in, so it took me twice to apply to actually get into that. and then you spend 2 days at Google and you sort of build a moonshot, think about what you're going to do and change education in a way. So that's where Genius Hour Fair I got the idea for that.
Yeah, talk about that. So you're the creator of Genius Hour Fair, and I don't know a lot about it, but I know there's a lot of people who are doing Genius Hour, whether in their classroom or as a special class. Tell us about Genius Hour Fair.
So Genius Hour Fair, as I said, I love the whole inquiry approach to learning, getting students to question the world around them and develop their own questions and wonderings and investigations and research. And so I was already doing Genius Hour, and pretty much what Genius Hour is it comes from Google's 80-20% time. So at Google, they have their engineers work 20% on projects that are of interest to them and 80% on projects that Google sort of gives. So it's pretty much like a school, for instance, saying to a teacher, 80% of the time we hire you, you have to teach, but the other 20% you can do what you like, as long as it is sort of something that inspires you to inspire others. It has to have some sort of impact on the school. So it could be like a project, a little club, or something in that sense. So that same idea is now being transformed into the classrooms, where kids are given that time of Genius Hour where they can work on a project. I know every school's slightly different, every classroom is slightly different. There's no set rules in how you do it, as long as it is a non-Googleable question. So obviously it's getting students to think outside the box and to really investigate the world around them, question what they want to know and how they're going to find the answers. So they develop a question, they do some research, then they create something which may be a model, it may be just a website to share the information they've learned, it might be a video, it might be a brochure, it might be they may code something and then share it. And then the next part is to share it, and it's to share beyond your own school. So ideally today you want to be connecting your classes with others and doing things. So I was doing that and doing a great job, and I had connected my class with another class, and I worked on a project together through Google Hangouts and Google Docs. And then at the Google Teacher Academy, we had to think of a moonshot, some big thing that we wanted to change. And I was like, well, realistically, I'm just a teacher. It's my, how many years out was I then? Third year out, I think. Third year out I would have been. And I was like, what really can I do? Oh, no, it would have been my second. Anyway, whatever it was, I can't remember now.
It's okay.
And I sort of got the idea, and I gave up in a sense. I was like, oh, I'll make a camp. It will be great. The kids can come for 2 days. They can all work. And then I was like, where are you going to run this? Who's going to support this? Where are you going to get money? Like, there's so many things you've got to consider. And then I was like, oh, I love Genius Hour, and I just feel that so many people are doing it and no one's sharing it enough. So I originally wanted to have a meetup where everyone came together and shared their projects, and then again, cost and where we are in the world, I thought it's probably not going to work. So then I just thought, why not just put an online showcase? So teachers from around the world can upload a short little video of their students sharing their project, and then allow the world to vote. So it's pretty much just a platform for teachers to share student projects, really, and see what others are doing. So that's where it all came from and what it is. And yeah, it's been going great. We've had, I think, 200, well, I should have checked my figures before, but we've had a lot of, over 300, I think, all up. We have a upper, so I think it's a 9 to 12-year-old, and then a 13 to 16-year-old, two groups to enter in. And obviously I'm a little bit lenient sometimes. Some teachers are like, oh, I've got a really good project, but they're not quite the age yet. And I said, that's fine, just submit it in. So I'm not very strict on the rules. I'm just sort of trying to provide something else for teachers to showcase student learning, because I think they do some fantastic things in their classroom. It's just about to share it with the world.
Absolutely. So you said there's a winner, or, I mean, is it a certain entry date, or how's that work?
Yeah. So last year I was trialing it, and I ran it 2 in the year, and I found it was just too much going on, especially with the American over there, because we have different terms. So we run from January to December, where you run from, correct me if I'm wrong, August through to July. Is that correct? Or
depends, but generally, yeah, it's August to the beginning of June.
Yeah. So And so it sort of coincide didn't quite work. So I figured this year, I said, let's make it easy and just do one per year. So you can submit your students' Genius Hour projects now at geniushourfair.com, and it will be open until the 10th of October. So it gives teachers in the US opportunity, if you've got a new class, to do a project, or even if you had a student from last year, you can still submit them in this year's Genius Hour Fair. So pretty much students create a video, teachers upload it, and then everyone online votes. So I'll upload them all to the website. The general public votes, and then I announce some awards, and then we just keep going and do it again. So
wow, that's amazing. That's a wonderful idea. What a great way to, not only showcase student work, but to connect teachers.
Yeah. So any sort of, it's funny, I don't know, I start all these little projects and then sometimes I think, oh my gosh, how much have I taken on? But at the end of the day, once they're up and running, they sort of run themselves. So
that's just, you're amazing. You're just amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, you talked a little bit about Teach Tech Play, but kind of go into a little bit more depth and detail about that, because I'm interested to hear more.
Yeah, so Teach Tech Play started just over 2 years ago now, where a group of educators, where myself and another educator from Australia got together and had an idea to showcase what teachers are doing in the classroom. And so we knew that there was app smashing, hangouts, and a whole heap, but we didn't just want to focus on purely Google. We thought that, there's great things happening in every classroom. Why just focus just on Google? As much as we all love Google, a lot of schools are also iPads. There's a whole range of things, coding, maker spaces, everything else. So we thought of the name, we created this online web show, and we just started a monthly web show, really. So each month I would invite 3 to 4 educators from around the world, and I would run this show where each person would showcase a different tool. So last week we had episode 23, and we've had a few extras. We ran one looking at Google Apps, and we ran another PE one. So we've done 24. I've just announced episode 23. And we average, last week I think we had over 190 views overnight.
Wow.
Worldwide. So I'm just checking quickly. Last week we had, I can't even see now, whatever it was. I think we're up to 300 views from last week, so 400. So it just sort of allows teachers to get another insight of different ideas. So each presenter who we get on shares they've just got 4 minutes, so it's kept short and sharp and gives teachers just an idea, go, hey, I might try that might work in my class, and then take it back. And then the public votes for the week, and then we get our play king or queen, which is always exciting.
That is exciting.
Then from that, we ended up hosting a conference this year. So I organised a conference with 300 educators that attended in Melbourne, and we had Alice Keeler as one of our keynotes, as well as Mark Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was absolutely fantastic. Great group of educators. We all came together for 2 days and share and learn together. And from there, one of the participants came up and said, it would be great after the show to actually have a Twitter chat. And I was like, yeah, it would be good. And then I sort of adapted what he was thinking and changed it slightly and made it link back to the show. So now what we do is we run the web show on the Monday generally the first Monday of each month. And then the following Monday we run a little chat where we chat about the tools used. So it gives teachers time if they want to go have a play or experience them, and then they can come and share and answer and ask questions through this conversation. So that's where we're at. And
wow. So now I'm wondering if you ever sleep. Now I'm wondering that same thing.
I
do. So I'm assuming that the web show Teach Tech Play is also archives if people can't make it on the. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got a YouTube channel, so you can go there and watch all our videos and subscribe and keep up to date.
Cool.
Our website's currently a Google site, but I'm not quite happy with it, so I might be updating that soon as soon as I find the time to work on it.
Less sleep for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you have all of these great ideas, obviously, and so many things that have taken off. Can you share with us anything that an idea that you had that maybe didn't work out? Just because I feel like sometimes we get focused on, oh, well, that works for that person, but then we don't see the things that didn't work. Was there any time you had an idea and you were like really gung ho about it and then it just sort of failed?
Everything, pretty much.
Okay.
Nearly. I think anything you do, if you don't fail at it, you're not going to actually learn. So most of the things I do, as much as I share a lot of the good stuff, there's a lot of bad in there too. And I think that's something that teachers forget. Like, a lot of people say to me, oh my gosh, you do so many things. I said, I don't see myself any different to anybody else. As you said, I do a lot, but I don't see it any more than what the teacher I work with does or anybody else. I think you're going to fail. Like, things don't work all the time, and I get frustrated, especially at technology, and whenever I want it to work, it never works. I've designed amazing lessons that I thought were amazing, and then I get in and it just fails, and it's just like, oh. But I think you can't let that get you down. I think with technology, it's going to fail. Like, I had a whole day planned, like a whole day of coding and robots, and then we had a power failure. And I was like, well, there goes the internet. I couldn't even log into my whiteboard because I don't even have a whiteboard in my classroom. It's just the screen which I have to log into the system, and because the whole system died because of the blackout, it blew the whole system. So you just have to rethink, and it shows kids as well that things don't go to plan, and it's okay when it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't think of one specific lesson, but there's been many. Oh, actually, this is a funny one that happened the other week. It happened at the start of the year, actually. I was trying to explore spheros and how to incorporate them into my class.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd seen people use them, and they're like, it's easy. And a friend of mine from another school lent me theirs until my school purchased some. And I was
what are they again?
Oh, spheros are little robots, so you can use with the iPad that code, and then students can code them and create obstacles and link them to maths lessons and everything. They're fantastic. If you haven't seen them, make sure you check spheros out.
Okay.
They're great. But to calibrate them, I didn't realize you had to link it up on the iPad. So I said to my students, you can work out which is the front or the back. So they designed this whole course out of masking tape on the floor to get the sphero to go through it. And the sphero just was going in every single short direction. And they're like, it's not working. And I was like, I don't understand. I don't get this. And then I went back to this other teacher, and they're like, oh, I forgot to tell you. You just click here and it tells you where's the front, where's the back. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? So it happens to all of us. I don't read instruction manuals, which I probably should sometimes. I just sort of get it out and start playing. I think you shouldn't have this fear with new things. Let your kids play, and then you'll get ideas. And that's what I sort of do. I say to them, all right, I've seen this. Here's an example. Show me what you can do. And then you see them play in the discussions that happen, and then you can design your thinking and lessons around it. And that's what I think education's about today, is like seeing something and adapting it to fit your context.
Okay, now I have two questions, and they're pretty big questions from what you just said. One is, what do you think in education kind of blocks that for teachers, stifles their ability to be creative with their kids? And at the same time, if you could, create an educational system that would be perfect, what would that look like? So I know that's kind of two separate questions. Mm-hmm. They're big questions, but talk about those two things.
I think the thing that boggles teachers down is the sense of curriculum. I have to teach this, I have to do this. But I think you've got to just be more creative in the way that you do it. And for me, I guess I don't really know any different. It's just what I've always done. So everyone always says, oh, it takes a lot to change, and you must have changed. But for me, I actually haven't done anything differently. It's just what I've always known and done. So I'm lucky in that sense. But for a lot of others, it's hard for them to change. And I think, teachers today, a lot of them have been teaching for many years. And, I don't say that's a bad thing. I value their time in the classroom because they've got great lessons that they can teach me. I don't know all the answers. I have no idea, really. I can think of things to adapt my lesson, but even sometimes I say it, and once it comes out of my mouth, I think, oh, that was a bit silly. I'll take that back. I mean, it's just that sense of sharing with others, get the knowledge, shape your educational teams with supportive teams that can help each other. Have somebody who knows things, who wants to also learn. I think if you're in that sense of, I've always done it this way, then you shouldn't be teaching. I feel you need to think about the best for your students. Realistically, it wasn't that long ago I was sitting in those desks, and classrooms have changed a lot in that short amount of time. In 9 years, like, it's not that long, really. Now I'm showing my age, but it's changed a lot. And I think even if you look at the advances at home, even the things that are changing, you need to change. Workplaces are changing, jobs are changing, and so our schools need to change. The sense of you, ideally, that sense of having to have an end result, of knowing facts in that end of high school, we call it year 12 here, that end of school knowing, I've got this grade. Well, really, you just know a lot of facts and a lot of information, really, and how valuable is that going to be? It should be more based around experiences and interviews, I think. I know your universities and colleges in America are quite different to the way our system works here, but a lot of ours are based around your simple grade and you either get in or you don't get in. The only courses that are interview-based and want to actually see your work are the arts or fashion, which aren't highly valued a lot of the time. And you sort of start to think, well, realistically, even if you want to become a doctor, for instance, you have to have the grades, but you have to have the personality and the way to communicate ideas. And how can you really know that just by looking at a grade? It should come down to more than just a grade, I think. That's where I think education's going wrong a lot of the time. Teachers get worked up, I haven't taught this. And realistically, I don't know in America, but our curriculum's overcrowded. Realistically, if we had to teach every single thing on that curriculum, we would be at school every hour of the day. It's just not possible with the extra things. I think you need to teach students the skills rather than information sometimes. They can find information. Google's not going anywhere. Like, it's going to be around, and if not, it will get replaced by something even better. But how are they going to get those answers from Google? What about those questions they don't know? Where are they going to get those from? And I think that's what we need to do, is prepare our students for those unknowns. The world's rapidly changing. Who knows what's going to happen? And they need to be prepared for that and know where to seek and find answers. Absolutely. I think that answered it.
Yeah, no, absolutely it did. Now, I don't think that our university system, our college system, is much different than what you've described there. I mean, we might have a small number of universities that want like a portfolio from our high school students, but it's very, very small. I mean, most of our colleges and universities are still looking at GPA, which is basically the grade calculation, and that's the first step in even being accepted into a college or university. And so what we get hung up with, and this may be similar to your situation, is at the high school level, so many of our teachers kind of get bogged down by this idea that, we're preparing many of our students to go on to colleges and universities, and our colleges and universities are still so traditional. They still, sort of like teach from the textbook. There's lots of lecturing. There's lots of note taking. And so then our high schools feel like they have to prepare our kids for that. And so then they end up just perpetuating this sort of traditional mindset of teach from the book, take a test, move on, rather than what you've described by having kids seek and inquire and, try to figure out solutions to problems that we don't even know about.
And I think that's another key thing. It comes down to the universities and what they're doing. Like, realistically, many lecturers. I know at some big universities here in Australia, they've got retired teachers lecturing who haven't actually been in the classroom for years. And not saying they're not a wealth of knowledge, but are they really up to date with current practices of what the classroom's really like today? And I think that that's the big thing, especially in any sort of university. I know that there's a university out here, actually. It's an independent little university where they've actually designed their own curriculum. So it is happening. I've actually been lucky enough to work closely with him. And he came from a corporate world, the guy who runs this school, and it's called Republica EDU, and they run 5 different schools. So within their schools, for instance, they've got one called B School, which works at leadership and entrepreneurs. So you go in and you do a course related to that, but your mentors and you do real life things. So you work with some of the biggest, highest profile people within Australia context. So Adam Gilchrist, who's a famous cricket player, is one of the mentors who can support you and talk to you about leadership in that sense of his own experiences. You've also got another school that they're running is a digital design school. So they've actually paired up with, I've got to get my right movie, I think with, I don't know which ones now, Hollywood movie productions. So your mentor could be the mentor of Avatar, and it all happens online. So they actually lecture and you create videos and they actually support you in that process. So I think that it is happening, but not enough, and not enough people know about it. And I think even students and parents even, I think parents are the worst. No offense to parents. I'm not yet a parent, so I can say that. But they're sort of in this sense that, I learned this way. But, yeah, you didn't probably have what your child now has available to them either. So they have to change their sense of the way they look at things, and the sense of, I'm sounding very, I watch American TV, movies clearly, my son got into Harvard Law or whatever, what's that really, it's a great thing, well done, but, my child could get into this other thing and get out and earn the same amount as a lawyer in designing or coding these days, but it's not valued the same, especially by parents. The parent's not going to say, my son went to an independent university and he's now one of the number 1 coders. They're going to be like, well, what does he actually do? It's because they don't actually know. Where the sense of, I don't really know where I'm going, but that whole sort of idea that the whole mentality of people today need to change of what education is really and where it goes.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Parents can, get stuck in this idea, well, I learned this way and I turned out great. I have a great job. And not recognize that, like you said, there's tools available to our students that definitely weren't available to us or to them. And the world is just different. The workplace is different. I mean, no longer do people work the same job for 30 years or even know the jobs that exist. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole process, and who knows what the next big job's going to be. I don't know. Hopefully I get to say it. You don't know who's in your class, the next Steve Jobs or whoever it is, the next big upcoming thing.
Absolutely. Now, I just have one last question for you. So where do you, I mean, you're doing some amazing things, and you've only been in the classroom, what you said, 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years, or what do you hope's happening?
Wow. I have no idea. I actually got asked this question earlier in the week. I don't really know. I don't think I even had what I have achieved, getting Victorian, which is, I've just been awarded Victorian Educator of the Year, which is my state's award. And even getting that, I never expected to get that. I never sort of set out to be a teacher to do what I've done. It's just sort of happened. And I think for me, I really have no idea. I think for me, I'm just going to keep doing what I do, continue to share, continue to learn with others. I don't have all the answers. I'm no expert. As much as people say I am, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. I've got still a lot to learn. I've still got a lot to give. I'll just keep going. I don't know what's going to happen.
I hope so. I hope you keep going. Absolutely. Just so the listeners know, it was her first day back at school today, and she agreed to stay up late and chat with us, so I really appreciate that. But I know that you need your sleep, as little of it as I'm sure you get. So, Eleni, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I look forward to watching you and your work on Twitter. And just real quick, if people want to follow you on Twitter or check out your Teach Tech Play and your Genius Hour Fair, can you share those contacts just one more time?
Yep. So Teach Tech Play is the Twitter handle, all one word. Also, Genius Hour Fair is also the Twitter handle for that. Or you can go to geniushourfair.com, or all of it's on my blog as well, which is elenikyritsis.com, or my Twitter handle, Miss Kyritsis. So you can check that all out. One thing, though, I'm going to say, in the next 10 years, I know I'll still be working with kids in the classroom. I think as soon as you step out of that classroom and lose that connection, you lose a whole lot of sense of what actually goes on in there. So I know whatever I do, I'll always be working with kids in some sort of form. I won't leave that classroom.
Absolutely. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in on the Pittsburgh Gal Principal Podcast. I am always excited to connect with women in education, learn how they are balancing work and home, as well as challenging the status quo about what it means to be a successful woman. My podcast is all about elevating the voices of women, so please share these stories with your friends and your colleagues. Find me on Twitter at @eclaire_ahs. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.